What is up, my wizards? It's Dev from MTG on the YouTube.com down there. We like magic, coming to you on probably the most exciting day of Kaladesh spoilers so far. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the most exciting news of the day, in case you haven't heard yet, or even if you have heard, it's still really exciting. We woke up this morning to 4 new cards with a weird border, and they're all reprints. We're like, what is this crazy stuff? And there's a source article included, and I've got a link to this article, by the way, in the description. It's a pretty important article from Wizards. Basically, what Wizards is going to be doing from now on, they say for the foreseeable future, is in every set, we will get a cycle of cards that are almost exactly, really, they function pretty much exactly like the Zendikar Expedition cycle. They're going to be reprints of powerful, sought-after cards, but they're only going to be playable in the formats that they're already legal in. So if you open, a masterpiece, that's what they're calling them, if you open a masterpiece card in a Kaladesh booster, you can't play it in Standard unless it's already Standard legal. And there's only one cycle of cards that is Standard legal that you can open up. Aside from that, really cool news, there's 30 of these in Zendikar, in Kaladesh. And there's going to be 24 in Aether Revolt. They're talking about putting 50-ish or so of these different Masterpiece cards in every single block. So we'll get, 25 in each set. That means Amonkhet is going to have its own block of Masterpiece cards too. So this is really, really cool, and these cards are probably going to be highly valuable. Apparently they're about as rare as a premium mythic rare. So that's pretty rare, but you'll probably get one every few boxes. It's just like Zendikar Expeditions, basically. So there's some really exciting stuff, and they spoiled all 30 of these cards that are going to be in Kaladesh with brand new art, all of them gorgeous. So I'm going to run through these real quick so we can get hype. First of all, 3 legendary swords, and God, Sword of Fire and Ice looks really good. Look at that's just beautiful. Steel Overseer, which would be awesome if we could play it in Standard. That'd be pretty broken, but we can't. Static Orb is back, and look at that art too. It's like a lot of these arts are the perfect art. Just the perfect art for the card. We'll see Cloudstone Curio later. That is just amazingly, beautifully perfect. Here's Solemn Simulacrum, looking good. Soul Ring, best Soul Ring art ever, and that's might be a pretty penny right there. Sculpting Steel, which is super sweet. Scroll Rack, look at Scroll Rack. Rings of Brighthearth, which is, I guess, Commander, hey. Painter's Servant, look at Painter's Servant. 2 Moxes, look at that, Mox Opal and Chrome Mox, and God, are they both just breathtaking. Mind's Eye is back. That's cool. Mana Vault, they reprinted sort of Mana Vault. That's really good. Lotus Petal, and look how beautiful Lotus Petal is, you guys. That is just, I love Lotus Petal. Lightning Greaves, another one for Commander players. Hey, Lightning Greaves, you're really good looking. Crucible of Worlds. Get hyped for Crucible of Worlds. Here's the Cloudstone Curio I was talking about. That's just the perfect art for this card. That's what it's supposed to look like. Chromatic Lantern is back. That's, hey buddy, I'm replaying you for a long time in Standard. Played Toast. Champion's Helm. Hey guy, you're back randomly. That's really cool. Aether Vial, everybody is here. Hello, Aether Vial, you showed up. Everyone was like, hey, you might get reprinted in Standard. And smart people were like, no, you won't. And here you are in the Masterpiece cycle. Aether Vial. Mana Crypt, for God's sake, is back. That's amazing. Gauntlet of Power, that's just a callback to when we played Crazy Magic back in the day. Gauntlet of Power is back. Hangerback Walker is back. You can play it in Modern once Origin rotates out and this card becomes a thing. And then the Gear Hulk cycle is the cycle that's playable in Standard, and all of these are beautiful. And we got to see the red Gear Hulk, which we will cover in just a second. But so far, that is all of them, actually. That is all of the I guess the Expedition cycle for this set. The way this works, by the way, I want to just throw this in at the very end here, is that in Zendikar they were called Expeditions. In Kaladesh they're called Inventions. They're Kaladesh Inventions. But the overall cycle of these in every set is going to be called the Masterpiece cycle. So how crazy is that? There's a lot of these. There's 30 is a lot. And a lot of them are really good. Like Lotus Petal's back. That's so cool. Mana Crypt. What Mana Crypt? Aether Vial? Mana Vault? Like, that's insane. Like, I can't really, I don't have words. I'm just going to gush for another 10 seconds or so before I move on to the actual Kaladesh spoilers for the day. Because, I am super happy they did this. And I don't know how many people are like, boo this. Like, I don't, maybe some, maybe some collectors are like, oh, cards will lose value. But that hasn't been the case every time that they've tried to do something similar to this, especially with Expeditions. It didn't really drive values down that much on the existing versions at all. So it's just going to be really pretty versions of cards that are nice, and you can open them randomly. I think this is going to really drive sales on Kaladesh boosters, and if you were a cynical person, you could say that that's the entire reason they've done it, and that probably is like 70% of the reason they've done it. But this is something for the players. That's all I'm going to say. You buy Kaladesh boosters, you got a pretty good chance of getting something really beautiful that will hold some value, and you can play it in some formats, because almost all of these are playable in some format or another. So, super awesome, and I'm pretty stoked about this. But they also spoiled some boring old regular Kaladesh spoilers today. But they're not so boring. A lot of these are actually really, really interesting, and some of these will definitely have some sort of impact. So let me go ahead and give you the red Gear Hulk here. This is Combustible Gear Hulk. It's 6 mana for a 6/6 first strike. That's 4 generic and 2 red, by the way. When Combustible Gear Hulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then Combustible Gear Hulk deals damage to that player equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards. This card is good. This card is good. A lot of people are complaining about this. Like, this doesn't do good stuff. Yes, it does. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know if it's the best Gear Hulk or not, but a couple of awesome things going for this. First of all, drawing 3 cards. Drawing cards is really stupid sweet, and your opponent probably won't want you to do that, although if they're at a certain life total, they're kind of going to have to let you draw 3 cards, which in the mid-game is insanely good. Like, by the time you have 6 mana, it's sort of the mid to late game, and drawing 3 cards is just a straight-up refill. Your opponent doesn't want you to do it, but if you put them at like 8 or 12 life, in that range, they're not going to want to just have to maybe take a bunch of damage. And there is the, you might get 2 lands in an actual card when you mill, and he'll do like a little bit of damage. There's a chance of that, but this obviously goes in a big red shell, or maybe a Jun shell, any deck that's going to play a lot of cards high up on the curve. Maybe a ramp deck, something like that. So if you just played a bunch of maybe big Eldrazi, that's one thing. Or even in a big red shell, you just play Chandra, Goblin Dark Dwellers. There's a bunch of stuff at 5 and 6 mana that you play. Maybe in Mardu, because you can play Sorin, has also a similar effect. And Sorin costs a lot. You reveal a Sorin off of this when you mill it, and you'll deal 6 to them at least. So this card can just end the game when it comes down, especially in the shell that it wants to go in, because you have a chance of flipping over like 2 cards that cost 5, or a card that costs 4 and a card that costs 6. Like, it's not really that hard. It's not Christmas Land or anything. So I think this card is fantastic, and although it does give your opponent the choice, which is traditionally bad, the choice is going to be bad for them either way. They don't want you drawing 3 cards that late in the game and getting a straight up refill. That's insane. They also don't want to take like 8 damage or more a lot of the time. So I love the choice on this card. I think it's bad for your opponent either way. I love that it comes on a huge body, and I love the shell that it could go in. So I'm a fan of this Gear Hulk. Forgive me my being hyper, by the way. I'm still pretty jacked about the Masterpiece cards. But, again, they did show some cards today from actual Kaladesh that are worth getting jacked about. Not just the Gear Hulk, but this thing right here. This is Tool Shaper Paradigm. It's just 1 white mana for a 1/1 Dwarf Artificer with, at the beginning of your combat step, if you control an artifact, Tool Shaper Paradigm gains +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control at least 3 artifacts, Metalcraft, it also gains First Strike until end of turn. Okay, so this has 2 almost immediate shells that it goes into in Standard right now. It could go in the red-white Equips deck, This plus Bonesaw looks pretty good right there. And it obviously goes into the Vehicle deck. Not bad at all. Early game you can get that second artifact turn 2 super easy, Just play like the 2 mana cost Vehicle, this thing that we spoiled the other day. Seems really good with this. Second turn you swing for 3, and then third turn things start happening, Once this guy loses relevance, you can use him to crew things for 3. That's pretty cool for just a 1-mana creature. Or if he stays relevant for the next few turns, you're swinging for 3 with a guy that just, you invested 1 mana into. So there's a lot of really good things about this card in the current Standard. And people have said maybe he's playable in Affinity. I don't know about that. I think he ruins a lot of the synergies that you want, especially on turn 1, the way setting up the game in Affinity. I think there's too many things that he sort of throws off course. But in vehicle decks, he definitely looks like an insanely playable 1-drop. And in equipment decks, he looks good. You know, turn 1 this plus Bone Saw, turn 2 maybe another one of these and equip a Bone Saw, or you could just play Weapon Trainer on turn 2. That would be pretty good too. Swing for 4, that's not bad. So really, really like this guy as a 1-drop. Yes, although before I finish up, in a format with Liliana, he seems a lot worse, yes, but I think the format just has to have a way to control something like this, because this actually looks like a very good card. You know, 1 mana, 2 power guys are usually good. So 1 mana, 3 power guys whose condition is very easy to fulfill seem just exponentially more powerful even, honestly. So this guy seems awesome, but there are controls for him. This is Electrostatic Pummeler right here. He's 3 generic mana for a 1/1 construct, an artifact creature. When Electrostatic Pummeler enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. And you can pay 3 energy counters. Electrostatic Pummeler gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. So that's cool. When he comes into play, he gives you the energy needed to double his power at least the 1 time. That's cool. And he works well with pump spells, obviously. You know, things like Rush of Adrenaline, maybe, which will give him trample. Or that, you know, green thing that we spoiled the other day that gives him +4/+4 for just 2 mana. That's nice, too. So, and I like that on turn 4, you know, you play this turn 3. Turn 4, you can give him +4/+4 and still have mana up to protect him with, like, Negate or something like that, Dispel even. So I like that about the card. And we'll actually spoil a card a little bit later that works really well with this as a pump spell. So I like some of the functions of this, and you could even look at it as just 3 generic mana for 3 energy counters on a 1/1 body that will block for you and stuff. So there's that too. You know, 3 energy is nothing to sneeze at, even if you're not going to double his power. Just use him like a blocker, chump block with him, and you've got yourself 3 energy for 3 generic. That's not bad either. I like sort of the versatility on that. I'm not sure how much standard play he'll actually see at the end of the day. He is tough to get working. You know, he's blockable, he's removable, so lots of issues with the card. But I do think he at least looks fun and could be a way to get energy without having to. I'm not planning on using this guy to kill you or anything. But option is open. This is Consulate Surveillance right here. It's 4 mana, 3 generic and a white for an enchantment. When Consulate Surveillance enters the battlefield, you get 4 energy counters. And you can pay 2 energy to prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn by a source of your choice. So it's like an energy circle of protection. That's pretty cool, actually. 4 mana is pretty steep, but gotta say it, Turbo Fog? You know, that's what everyone's saying about this. It only prevents the damage from 1 source, so if your opponent's got a pretty big board, it's not going to help you out a whole bunch, but it does prevent the damage from the biggest thing on their side of the board at least twice, which could be good, and probably more. Probably more than twice, honestly. There's lots of ways to get energy right now, and it looks like there's probably going to be even more ways to get energy by the time it's all said and done. So you might be able to put together like a Turbo Fog build. We might try that. It depends on what else we see here. This is at least a fun-looking, exciting card for one particular strategy that everyone's always trying to see if we can put together. And actually, I shouldn't say the word everybody. A lot of people hate Turbo Fog, but there's a specific brand of player, and I'm one of them, I'm sorry, that's like that guy. It's just like, can we put the jankiest deck together ever and it actually works? So we'll see. I like the card. Speaking of cards I like, this is Glint-Nest Crane. It's 2 mana, a generic and a blue, for a 1/3 bird with flying. And when Glint-Nest Crane enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Is it just me, or is this thing like really actually extremely good? Like Chase Uncommon, played in multiple formats, actually good. Let me know if I'm off base here, and I don't have that many words about the card because I'm kind of stunned, because I actually think that this looks like very playable in a lot of formats. So again, like, slap me if I'm dreaming in the comments, because is this as good as I think it is? I think it is. I think I'm judging this fairly. Up next is Blossoming Defense. This is just 1 green mana for an instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. This is the pump spell I was talking about, works with Electrostatic Pummeler. That seems really good with Pummeler when they go to remove it. But just hexproof for 1 green plus a really relevant buff is a good card. Like, that's maybe standard playable in the right, like, aggro deck, you know? Which, that remains to be seen. Maybe this is a sideboard card for, like, green-white humans. It's also a good trade, by the way, for Giant Growth. Like, we're probably not going to see Giant Growth again for a while, because that pump spell is just kind of too good. But this is a good trade. You trade 1 power and 1 toughness for Hex-proof, which meaning that it's really good defense against removal. So, that is a fan-freaking-tastic trade, actually, and I'll take it every day. This is Contraband Kingpin. It's awesome. This is 2 mana. That's a blue and a black for a 1/4 Aetherborn Rogue with lifelink. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. So those that have been watching these spoiler videos of mine know that I've been talking about a black-based artifact deck. You know, it might be black-white, it might be black-red, it might be black-blue. Looks like it's black-blue, because this looks really, really good. And I do think that they have pushed the card to an extent. You know, 2 mana for a 1/4, the huge butt on this thing. 1/4 is a great blocker on turn 2. And it has lifelink, so it can block stuff and gain you life and usually live. So that's awesome too. Scrying 1 whenever you get an artifact out is awesome. So this could actually see multi-format play, possibly. I'm not sure about that statement, but it could definitely see standard play if, you know, a blue-black artifacts is at least a budget thing. We'll have to wait and see. So we need to see some really, really punchy artifacts, even more than we've already seen. So I'm not really sure about the ultimate playability on the highest level for this card, but I do really like its potential in certain builds, so huge fan. Also, this is basically like Pablo Escobar. Up next, I'm not even going to show my face on this one. This is Prakata Club Security. It's 4 mana for a 3/4 Aetherborn Warrior that does nothing else except have a hard to pronounce name. This is Lawless Broker. It's the next card. It's 3 mana, 2 generic and a black for a 3/2 Aetherborn Rogue with when Lawless Broker dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. This is a little bit more like it. I like creatures that have, you know, dies effects. You keep some of its power on the board. All that's good. It is a common, which means, you know, standard pauper playable. If that could be a format again, that'd be awesome. But I want to move on to a card I actually do really like. This is the final card spoiled of the day. This is Eliminate the Competition. It's 4 and a black, that's 5, for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Eliminate the Competition, sacrifice X creatures. Destroy X target creatures. So this is the replacement for an Intuko Husk, probably. We've all been asking that question, what's Aristocrats going to do when it loses Husk, you know? This, I think it's probably going to do this. 5 mana is in no way too much to ask, especially if Aristocrats keeps its, you know, Cryptolith Right plan. Not hard at all to make this work on, like, turn 3. Honestly, because you can tap the guys to play the spell and then sacrifice the guys and then blow away their side of the board. Possible, sets you back a little bit too, but if you have Zulapur Cutthroat out, you deal a little bit of damage, you gain some life, so that's pretty cool. I just really like the implications for this, and I'm totally willing to pay 5 mana for this card, especially the way Aristocrats is built in the present. So I like this card. I like that Aristocrats has a way of wiping the other side of the board. That's insane when you think about it. Aristocrats, you know, usually just interacts with its own side of the board for the most part. It draws cards, you know, it does deal damage to them, but it doesn't necessarily interact with the other side of the board that much. This card gives it a way to sort of the ultimate interaction with the other side of the board, you know. I'll sacrifice these 3 guys, keep a couple of good guys out, and then destroy your best creatures, you know. So I really am a fan of this card's function a lot, not even just in Aristocrats. I don't think it's going to see play outside of an Aristocrat, you know, sacrifice build, basically. But it possibly, I mean, it could. It's splashable, you know, only cost a 1 black mana, that's good. A decent mana cost, not bad. So, and the creatures you sacrifice can give you value. So, I mean, this looks like a pretty powerful card that will make a certain kind of deck playable. It will continue to be playable because of this card. I love the fact that we can remove their whole side of the board if that's what we choose to do. So, yes to this. Well, that's it. We made it through. That is all of the cards spoiled today so far, plus the entire Masterpiece cycle. Let me know about how you feel about all this hype mess down there in the comments section. What are your favorite Masterpiece cards? What are you really hoping to open? What are your favorite cards from the actual spoilers today? That, like, aggro creature, that 1 mana white dwarf thing, that is really good for equipments and vehicles. The red Gear Hulk, is he bad? I don't think so. Is that stupid bird good? I'd really like that blue bird. So let me know how you felt about all of these spoilers down there in the comments, and like the content if you like the content. I want to thank you very, very much and humbly for the success so far of the All Commons, you know, 5 Pauper standard decks video. That video got 1,000 likes within just a few hours, and that's like freaking insane. And you can click right here and see that video if you haven't seen it yet. because apparently a lot of people really, really like it, and I can't tell you how much I am thankful for the response so far to this video. Anyway, as always, I gotta finish this thing up. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.